Now it's time for laws you don't know, you should know. And on this episode, I'm a little bit more prepared than last time. Feel ready. Shit, gotta switch. What we're going to is what you're required to do if you are stopped by the police. And so if you are stopped by the police, you're actually required to only do 3 things. It's name, address, and destination. Those are the only things that they can ask you and you're required to answer. And I actually might be wrong with that because it might be just be the verb. Basically,
I think it's just name and address.
Yeah. Basically, you have to be able to identify yourself to them, right? Mm-hmm. And those are your only requirements to ever provide to the police, right? And that in fact, there are actually more regulations on what a police can ask you as compared to what you are required to answer. And there's only one thing that governs what you are required and not required to answer the police, and that's the Fifth Amendment. And included in the Fifth Amendment is laws against self-incrimination. It is, our Constitution was amended by the Fifth Amendment, right? So it's a part of our Constitution. It basically says that you are not required to self-incriminate you, right? And the cutout is that identifying yourself to the police by name and where you live, right? That's not incriminating. That's just baseline information. If there's a warrant out for your arrest, the police need to know that. If you're a suspect for a crime, the police need to know that. So you are required to provide those baseline information. After that, every other question is voluntary. So when a cop says, who are these people in the car? Or do you have a gun on you? Or do you have a knife on you? Or are you carrying any drugs? Or have you been drinking, right? Mm-hmm. That question does not have to be responded to with an answer. It can simply be, I choose not to answer that question. It could be silence. It can be...
I feel like it's not, I mean, I don't do any criminal stuff at all, but isn't that like probable cause? Like you tell a cop, they ask you, have you been drinking? And you're like, I choose not to answer that. I feel like...
So,
No?
To them it might be. But
no.
It's all becomes racist.
So the thing is law mixed... So actually, I'm going to give you a hypo. After this, I wanted to lay the foundations. It all becomes a mixture of law and social dynamics, right? Because socially speaking, if someone asks you a question, it becomes very hard to just remain silent, right? Because if someone, like a cop asks, so if a cop asks you where you're coming from, you were just at a party, you don't think there's anything wrong, with the concept that you just came from a party, mm-hmm. So you say, I just came from a party. But if you're driving, right, the fact that you just came from a party can raise their level of suspicion that you are drinking. Now, like I said before, when I started in the beginning, they're actually very, at least in New York City, there's actually the DeBour's 4 levels of street encounters. So I'm going to explain that because I think it's important. A cop cannot approach a citizen of New York without an objectable, credible reason to approach them, right? Like a cop can't just be walking up. Now a cop can say, hey, how you doing? Good morning. But if he wants to walk up to you and go, hey, what's your name? What are you doing here? He can only do that with an objective, credible reason to do it. Now, what it takes to get there, right? Your car's swerving, that's an objective, credible reason to pull you over or approach you.
If you're like, it's easier to show what it's not, right? So if a guy's walking down the street and a cop says, oh, this guy looks suspicious, well, that's not, objective and it's not credible. Like, what about it made him suspicious? And
exactly.
then, you just don't know what it is. Like, oh, well, he had his head down, he was walking with his hands in his pocket. It's like, that's not
he had a hoodie on, right?
Yeah, exactly. So stuff like
that.
That's
hoodies are fine.
Before they ask you any questions, do they have to tell you why they stopped you?
No. So that's what makes it all more complicated, right? So now they can approach you, they can ask you back, like, hey, they can basically ask you, like, non-evasive questions like, hey, where you going? What's your name, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if they have more than that, they have for example, so I'll give you an example. Someone, they get a bulletin or fucking on their radio that a robbery just happened. There's someone with a black hoodie, black pants, who just robbed somebody, right? Now they have they have anywhere from founded suspicion, which is level 2, or even reasonable suspicion, to basically approach anybody that they see matching that description and engage with them to a certain level, right? Now, founded suspicion, which is level 2, basically allows them to approach a person that they have that suspicion with and ask them like, hey, did you just come from this direction? Because that's where they know the crime came from. You answer that question, which you're not required to, and that just allows them to like narrow down whether
it could be you
exactly
who did the robbery or not.
They're conducting an investigation, right? The whole point of these metrics is that they can't just walk around asking everybody, fucking up everyone's day, and just throw a dragnet over a community in a way that it's not appropriate given the circumstances. So founded suspicion is basically one level up, and it basically it allows them to ask pointed questions. Included in those pointed questions is, can I search you, right? Level 1, they can't even ask you to search you. Level 2, they can ask you to search you. Now, the important thing about these distinctions is that at level 1 and level 2, they cannot search you, right? A lot of people don't understand that when they're approached by cops and a cop goes, hey, do you mind if I search you? You can say, fuck out of here. No.
Yeah,
You can say no.
You can say no.
I say
There's
no.
a reason why it's phrased as a question, right? The next level is what's called reasonable suspicion, right? It's just before I'm capable to arrest you. And reasonable suspicion is basically, I've narrowed down that you are the suspect to a crime, or you're giving me enough information that I really feel like I have enough to arrest you, but I don't. And under this level of suspicion, what they can do is they can stop you. They can detain you. They can't arrest you, but they can detain you for the purposes of clarifying that suspicion.
I guess an example of level 3, another example would be like with the robbery case, right? So say if they found there was a 911 call and the person said that I've just been robbed. It's a guy with a red hoodie, red hat, black shoes, right? So then they found somebody, red hoodie, black shoe, whatever I just said. And then, so then what did the guy take, right? The 911 call was asking, well, he took my cell phone. And he describes the cell phone. They find the cell phone in that guy's pocket, right? It's an iPhone with a black case, right? Very typical. So that's level 3. That's still not enough to arrest yet. What they need is some type of confirmation ID. So then what they'll do is they'll detain that person for a certain amount of time. They'll bring the complainant, the person who made the call, to the scene to make an identification. Is this the person who you saw robbed you? And if they say yes, then now you're at level 4.
What happens if they can't say yes, but they're like, that's my iPhone?
Well, that would be the confirmation.
That's
Right.
okay.
Right.
And the funny thing is,
And they would
actually,
use that, yeah.
to a certain extent, let's say, for example, we're talking about an iPhone in someone's pocket. At level 3, they can't even search for the iPhone. They can't search for that. At level 3, it's not probable cause. Probable cause means they can arrest you and they can search you, right? But basically, at that's level 4. I mean, a probable cause is level 4. At level 4, that basically means they're gonna arrest you. They believe it's you to the level of probable cause, and they can search you because they're gonna arrest you, and they can also search you for proof of the crime. But they're already arresting you for. At level 3, which is just reasonable suspicion, they can only search you at that level if they have reasonable suspicion that you're armed and dangerous. And basically, the reason why they allow that is because what if you have someone you suspect of being the armed robber, the burglar, or whatever it is? Just engaging with that person is dangerous in itself. Right. So you are allowed to search them for your own protection. Right. But at the end of the day, you don't even know if that's the person you're supposed to actually be like given a hard time to. So that's why only in that situation can you search them. Right. If, let's say, for example, it's a fare jump, right? You jumped a fare on a train, right? I don't know. Okay, you looked at me good. If it's a fare jump and you run and they're saying, hey, someone on this train or this track, and they find you, they can't search you because they have reasonable suspicion that you are the fare jumper. Whoever's gonna come is gonna confirm it. But until they confirm it, they have no reason to search you because you're not putting them at risk of harm, and there's no evidence on you that is worth violating your rights to not be searched until they confirm that you're the guy. You feel me?
Well, see, the problem is they just go right to 4.
Well,
Yeah,
a lot of times,
I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you how this
Right.
actually works. I'm telling you how the law.
Got your bitch. Swag. Attorneys with swag. Attorneys.